Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Saturday night coverage of the WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series as we travel international. Instead of being on the United States, let's head to France as it's time for the drivers to attack one of the biggest tracks that they'll ever think about tackling. 8.5 miles of madness for 33 corners. It's at the Lemans for these drivers, and it's going to be a timed race, only that of 60 minutes they have to worry about, but still a lot of opportunities to throw this race away. As we get to give you the coverage here on Freaky Fast Broadcasting, my name's Sam Dyer. With me is Trevor Earhart, and I'm also going to be having Robert Moyer in the background trying to run productions here tonight. We're going to try our best, something a little bit new, different for the drivers, and completely out of probably our element here. But Trevor, we get to try something different as qualifying's underway for these drivers.
You know, try something different, Sam, and a track that probably not a lot of us are familiar with. Technically the 24-hour of Le Mans racetrack, but one that a lot of these drivers probably haven't been to, and they're going to have their hands full tonight, Sam, based off what we saw in practice.
And it's a little bit of a preview of what NASCAR's trying to attempt. It's going to be next season in 2023 when they're going to be trying to take their own NASCAR vehicle to the 24 hours of Le Mans. But for the WSSR crew, they said, hey, let's try something a little bit different. They've tried it with the ways that they start the season off, not being traditional of going to a super speedway at Daytona. Well, let's be a little bit even more different with heading to Le Mans and being a timed race on top of that. It's only going to be 1 hour that these drivers are going to handle as they're still on their warm-ups for these laps. I mean, Trevor, for these drivers, they're on their warm-up lap. We're already we've got 8 minutes left in qualifying, and these drivers still they're not even halfway for this first warm-up lap.
Yeah, so, at speed, you're looking at almost right at 4 minutes. I think we saw 3 minutes 56 in practice. So there's no going easy on your outlap. You've got to get around pretty quickly to make sure that you can get, I don't even know, Sam, if they can get both laps in, but you got to make sure that you get around this track with enough time. If you make a mistake, that you can reset and get back out there and at least get 1 lap in.
And another thing on top of that, once your warm-up lap is done and you're starting to get your time counted, you cannot make any mistakes. If you go off track at any moment, if you touch the rumble strips wrong, you touch the grass, if you find yourself going out of control or drifting at a time, that 1 lap is invalidated, and that's a waste of 4 to 3 minutes that you just put down.
Yeah, and it's something that you don't want to have happen because it'll fall back to your starting spot based off your iRating here. And for a lot of these guys, might not be road course racers. So for our fans out there who aren't familiar with iRacing, if you don't put a lap time in, sets the grid based off of iRating. Usually we're on ovals, so it's based off of oval iRating, but because we're on road courses, based off your road course iRating. And some of these guys might not be road course regulars.
There are a few drivers that have felt like they are competitors to watch out for, and the top of that list is that of Aaron Smith II, who looked very good at our last road course event, which was at COTA, Circuit of the Americas. That was the 3rd race of the season. This is the 7th race of the season after our off week last week. Last race that we ran was at Daytona, where that of Gabriel Ellison found himself into victory lane after an incredible pass. But tonight, road course specialists and a lot of drivers have been looking quick, but there's really just a good portion of just 5 drivers that I've got my eye on to watch out for. That's Ryan Bird, Tom Sinchek, Zach Hall, Brian Johnson, and the 70 of Aaron Smith II. Those 5 drivers look extremely quick, but the rest of the field, Trevor, that's where things get a little bit more mixy on if they practiced enough. As we're coming up to the halfway marker of qualifying, they were only given 10 minutes of time to try to put down just 1 lap, and we're already halfway through, and these drivers still, you see it on our board, no one's officially put a time in.
Yeah, we're watching on board here with the 27 of Jonathan Cogswell. I mean, he hasn't even made it back to the line yet to start his first time lap yet as he gets ready to come through. I believe this is the last turn 32 and 33, the Ford curves, I believe is what they're called, to his first time lap. But looks like Aaron Smith has put in a lap along with Ryan Bird, and Aaron Smith currently at the top of the board with a 3:58. Sam,
And a
almost
lot of
4 minutes.
and what's crazier here, Trevor, is now we're on the clock, not just for the drivers that are trying to finish their first lap, but if you want to even attempt a second lap, you are going to have to finish and get your time in just about 20 seconds. These drivers are on the clock. They've got about that of 4 minutes and 40 seconds left. We saw some of the drivers that were further back in the field. It was around a 4 minute and 15 second was probably one of the slower times deeper in the field. So if you're trying to finish out and get your second lap in, you've got to be hitting your marks perfectly. As for now, we've got 6 drivers that are on their second lap. That's going to be Aaron Smith the second, Ryan Bird, Alexander Linus, Brian Johnson now going to be popping up to second. And now the bell is rung for anyone that was attempting to try to do 2 different laps. That's all that they're going to have. And I'm looking at some of the drivers that have already put a time down. Aaron Smith the second has scrubbed off that second time. He is stuck with that 3 minute and 58 second lap that he put in.
Yeah, and that might be a fairly competitive lap for him going, as we wrap up qualifying here. You still got the Ada Thompson check to go out there. He was the quickest car in practice. And then, you got to look back. Zachary Hall hasn't put in a lap time yet. And then Vincent Sora, the winner from COTA, still hasn't put a time on the board yet. So Aaron Smith hoping that time stays on top of the board.
As see here, Varen Kralik, he's currently puttering it along. Zach Hall not putting a time in, and he's going to be in a troublesome spot. Right now is hitting the back stretch, is the 42. As more drivers starting to trickle in and see their times counting, this is kind of a shock because if Zach doesn't put a time in, he does have the highest I rating of, actually the second highest I rating of all drivers that are currently still trying to put their first time in. And if he doesn't get it across the line in here in 3 minutes, which I believe he can do so from this point on, it's just going to be very close, he would be mired in either 12th or 13th, as Vincent Sora, currently our points leader at this time. The 15 machine is on track, but he also hasn't been able to put a time in as that first lap was invalidated.
Yeah, just can't have those little mistakes here. You can't make it with how long this track is, especially in qualifying. Those off tracks not going to hurt you in the race unless you end up in the dirt or gravel and then end up in the wall. But in qualifying, that little bit of an off track that can set you way back. And how strung out this race could get, Sam, I think track position is going to be key for these guys.
And the wildest thing with these drivers putting in around 4 minutes to some of the faster drivers, well, a little bit less than 4 minutes are their times. Meaning this race, it's only an hour in length, 60 minutes. And if you divide that up, these drivers can only put in around that of 15 to 16 full laps around this track. But that doesn't seem like a lot with laps. But then you multiply that by 8.5. That is a lot of miles that these drivers are putting down, which means that they are going to have to at least do 1 green flag pit stop because there will be no yellows thrown throughout this whole entire race. And I believe if I looked over it right, at the end of the lap 6 marker, that will count as our stage break. No yellow will be thrown, but the top 10 drivers at the end of lap 6 will be getting themselves some bonus points.
Yeah, with those green flag pit stops, we saw it at COTA. You can't make a mistake, especially if you're running up front. It could really set you back and hurt you. And Sam, I was watching Vincent Sora, and during his qualifying run, I think he ran a little bit wide at some point. So I don't know if this second lap for Vincent's going to count.
We wait and see. A minute left in qualifying for these drivers. Ryan Bird going to be up to second for the 49 machine. Christopher Howell moves up to fourth for a quick second. Then the 97 out of Alexander Light takes his spot. As we keep on watching that, Jonathan Cogswell. Cogswell is going to be done with his time. 9th is going to be the fastest for the 27 at this moment. He'll throw it out onto the dirt. Wolsifer is going to be up to 7th. It continues to change as Zach Hall, his time will count. The 42 top of the board.
Great lap there by Zach. Got that car across the line. Puts himself on provisional pole as Rich Jamison comes across the line. Puts himself in, looks like P5 for Rich, or P4 for Rich Jamison there. So good lap from him in the 86 machine. As we wait for the rest of the guys, there's Brendan Colley coming to finish his time lap as well.
Well, he's got to be quick. He's got 10 seconds to get across the line. He just went through the 4 chicanes. These last couple of bends, 5 seconds left onto the front stretch and across the line with just that of a second to spare. The one, its time will count. 6th for that of Brandon Colley.
He got the time in, and I think that's all that matters for the one car Brandon Colley, Sam.
And time was the factor for qualifying for some drivers to get themselves set up in the best position, and time is the goal tonight. Only that of 1 hour, 60 minutes is going to be the length for these drivers as they're getting stacked up and ready to go. It's time to take a look at our look at our qualifying official spots. As always throughout this season, it has been Brandon Colley's mom giving you the sponsorship for tonight's qualifying. As we travel overseas, the disappointment continues forward as Brandon Colley could not get the pole. Instead, it's going to be that of Brian Johnson in the 28, taking that pole award over that of Zach Hall, with Aaron Smith going to be in 3rd, Brian Bird 4th, 5th will be Rich Jameson, Colley up to 6th, 7th is Alexander Light, Christopher Howell in 8th, 9th is going to be Jamie Lee Dunning, with Christopher Wolsifer in that 10th place position.
11th will be Aaron Carl Poehler rolls off 12th. Jonathan Cogswell and Kyle Rochelle will roll off 13th and 14th. James Kaufman, the last driver to put in a time, is going to roll off 15th. We've got Vincent Sora 16th, Tom Sinchek in 17th, Dakota Moniz, Tyler Dangler, and Christopher Norris will round out the 18th through 20th starting positions.
Then it's going to be Gregory Shaw in 21st position, Mark Morales 22nd, and James Hapler Jr., your 23 drivers here tonight. It is going to be only that of 90 minutes, 1 hour once we come across the line and go green that these drivers will have. Once they come across the line, though, coming to the time running out, they will have one more lap to try to finish out this race. But iRacing is already predicting that this race will be 16 laps for themselves for this time duration. Trevor, like I said, at other road courses, at other tracks that we go to, 16 laps doesn't sound like a lot, but here tonight, it is going to be a marathon for 1 hour.
8 miles, 16 laps, 4-minute laps. These drivers are going to have These drivers are going to be working out tonight. They're going to be sweating, feet are going to be hurting, shifting, all of those things. These drivers have their hands full tonight.
Tonight counts as the last stretch heading towards the playoffs. This race counts as our 5 races to go marker. After this, we then head to Bristol next week. Then we've got another week off before we go more short track racing at Southern National Park, Michigan, and finishing out our regular season will be at Phoenix. Trevor, these drivers have a lot to worry about here tonight as they're pacing from what we'll be calling the Porsche curbs, the very technical last aspect of this course, the final quarter of this racetrack. This is going to be the spot of the course where drivers can make some major mistakes if they're not perfect. But with the regular season coming to a close, there's a lot of things on these drivers' minds, Trevor, as we're getting ready to go green.
Yeah, just get as many points as you can, get into the playoffs, get a win, lock yourself in if you can. And with this track being as long as it is, being as difficult as it is, I mean, if you stay on track, keep the car clean, you never know, you might get out of here with good points or maybe even walk out of here with a surprise win for some of these guys. So just have to wait and see how this plays out, Sam.
And tonight is a very important race. Looking at the points coming into tonight, it's only 16 drivers make it into the playoffs, and there is a tied for 16th right now going on. Tyler Dangler, James Hapler Jr. both tied for that position, but the points will shift around. There is a drop week for these drivers, so they'll take away their worst their worst race to allow these drivers to have a little bit of an equal battling between one another as the drivers get to see the pace car. That little kink right there is pit entry. That is where you have to go to take an off-axis road to avoid the Ford chicanes. There's 2 of them, 2 very hard left rights to get you prepared for this launch. Are you ready? Because we have to be as well. It's the WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series heading to France, and we're green here for 60 minutes.
And Brian Johnson with a great start in the 28 machine, but Zach Hall trying to go back around his outside in the 42 as they head off into the first couple of corners here. And Zach doing a good job. Looks like he might get by Brian. A little loose there as they continue to battle.
And they got to be careful going through the Dunlop chicanes now, going under the Dunlop going to be that of bridge into what we call the S's. Drivers trying to build up their tires, brakes, heat up everything on this first lap. It's very important as everyone stays on their toes. Now getting ready for the last little kink before these drivers ramp it up, go full speed, and try to go as fast as possible, going up to 195 miles per hour at their peak speed. Here we go. It's the drafting aspect, the backstretch, as it feels like your resting period. This is the only time that during this whole entire race really that you get a little bit of a breather for about 20 seconds before you got these two very hard chicanes. And here comes the first one for Zach Hall and Brian Johnson.
And Zach Hall did a great job getting through the Dunlop chicanes there through the first couple of corners, but now you got to get that car slowed down for these chicanes. It does a really good job there. But Brian Johnson made up a little bit of ground, but it's about that drive off as you get to the second part of this backstretch. Brian Johnson closed the gap a little bit there to the 42 machine.
Another quick 20 seconds, so just a breather, stay in line, try to build up the draft. And if you get a good enough run out of the exit of these chicanes, you might have an opportunity to go for a pass, but these drivers just not close enough. As we look back from Brian Johnson to Ryan Bird, we head into our second chicane on the backstretch as we are now, what's crazy to think, as closing into that 46 into the entry of the chicane, all drivers trying to hit their marks as we go into another little quick stint. But we're getting ready for one of the hardest corners on this racing surface. It is a very tight corner that they come at the end of the stretch.
A very tight corner, and it's a very hard stop. I mean, you thought those backstretch, the two chicanes on the Mulsanne straight were tight. This corner is very awkward to get into. Is it kind of wide and then tight is really hard, but looks like Zach Hall and Brian Johnson and Zach Hall doing a really good job navigating that corner so far.
As our front four looking clean, green, and ready to get ripping, as it's going to be now Zach Hall heading down another long stretch. And this is the run down to Indy that the drivers are on. The trees to your left, to your right, as you get prepared for some more tight action. And this is now the final real quarter of this track when it's a lot of hard braking zones, cornering, and you're hoping and trusting that your brakes and your tires are warmed up enough for these corners into Indianapolis. Already issues for Ryan Bird. He goes off into the gravel, and there goes Aaron Smith, DeCauley, and others trying to capitalize after they go through that aspect of Indy. More hard braking zones, and now they set up for that of the Porsche corners. They go through the Porsche banner and into one of the toughest aspects, the fastest corners that these drivers get to deal with. But again, the trusting aspect. We're only on lap one, Trevor.
Yeah, Bird, great job not hitting anybody when he locked the brakes up. The battle continues up front between Zach Hall and Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson's there putting the pressure on the 42 machine. Had a little bit of a lockup early on as they head down in the Porsche curves, heading into the Ford curves. That 28 machine's all over the back end of that 42.
We're slowly coming out of the Porsche curbs here. Again, you're really feeling like you're on edge at all times, trying to trust. If I can give it a little bit more gas, maybe I can get out of these corners a little bit faster as they head through now into the Ford chicanes, the quick chicanes that come up to finish out this race. As you ride on board with the 49, it's really our leaders that you see here, our front three, Zach Hall, Brian Johnson, Aaron Smith II, through the Ford chicanes to finish out lap number one. And guess what? We're 5 minutes down, a 60 already in just one lap. Whew. Hopefully catch your breath with that one, Trevor, because we're right back to the chaos once again.
Yeah, we're right back into the Dunlop chicanes. Pretty fast corners. Take a lot of curb here, but you got to be careful not to upset the car as you make these left rights going through the Dunlop chicanes. And Zach Hall pulling a little bit of gap now to the 28 of Brian Johnson as he got a little bit better launch off the Ford curves down the front straightaway.
As we're seeing here further back, this is the battling for 12th place. You've got that of Richard Wilsifer, Carl Pooler, as well as Christopher Norris, Kyle Rochelle, and a lot of drivers that are known for being pretty aggressive going underneath the Dunlop into the S's, and now getting prepared for a lot of speed and trying to keep up with one another. As Kyle Rochelle, a driver that's been on the aggressive side of things at the most recent weeks, but the 21 here this season and here into tonight didn't look like a lot of practice was put into this track, more of just survive and hope that you've got enough speed to make it to the end. Up two positions is going to be that down one position, for that 21. Up two positions is going to be the 5 Dakota Moniz as they're side-by-side racing, and the 0-1 Akralik has to back out of it, doesn't have the draft help, and he'll lose a position here as they run down to the first chicane.
Yeah, the draft here, pretty big. It's almost contact there between the 66 and the 5 of Dakota Moniz as they try to get slowed down for that chicane. But yeah, the draft really big here. It's almost kind of
Oh
like...
no! There goes Shaw. The 66 spins around off of the nose of the 0-1 as they get rolling once again. Shaw losing over 6 positions in a blink of an eye as we move up to the battling up for the top 10. That's going to be Christopher Howell, Alexander Light, Tom Sinchek, as well as Vincent Sora, some of our biggest movers so far. 2 drivers that were not able to get the best times that they wanted for qualifying. And I got to say, for Tom Sinchek, he was one of our favorites to watch out for coming into this evening, trying to bring back his speed as we get to look on our bottom right, the track map, all the different aspects that these drivers get to go through.
Yeah, you know, Tom Sinchek and Vincent Sora, they've done a really good job getting through traffic. But you can see the little track map and see where these drivers are as they come out of, as they come out of the Mulsanne Straight heading down into the Indianapolis corner there. But you know, for Tom Sinchek and Vincent Sora, it's about getting through traffic as quick as you can and keeping that car in one piece, and they're doing a good job of it so far.
That they are doing a fantastic job so far, as you're seeing it deeper in the field, drivers on top of one another. But what's been interesting to see as we move back up to our leaders is they are still right on top with one another, and they're not giving an inch right now with the way that they're racing. As they set up to go through the Porsche curbs, you see the Porsche banner. That is giving you the indication and kind of the door opening of, all right, hopefully you've gotten your rest, because we're about to get right into things ramping up as we take a little bit of a ride along with Zach Hall through the Porsche curves.
Yeah, very fast section of the racetrack, the Porsche curves are, and then it tightens up to the Ford curves. But Zach Hall doing a good job so far controlling this race. Had a little bit of a lockup lap 1, but it's been looking really smooth so far in that 42 machine. But you can't look too far behind him because he's got Brian Johnson and Aaron Smith in the 70 car, both right there waiting for him to make a mistake.
And now exiting out of the Porsche curbs is that Zach Hall as he heads and sees the Ford banner that of indicating that we are heading into the Ford chicanes. And I think that's the one thing that I love about Le Mans is the fact that all the corners, the banners and the sponsors are the ones that kind of get to help sponsor and name what corners we're going into, as your front 3 still all within a second of one another, just nose to tail as the rest of the field start to make their surge through these real tight Ford chicanes.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. You got that little bit of a sausage curve on both corners there, the right and the left, so you can't hit those too hard. It'll upset the car, chance that you spin out. But yeah, it's nice, Sam, that the corners are named after the sponsors, because if you ever get lost, you just kind of got to look up and you'll know where you are.
I mean, it's so helpful for the drivers, especially if some of them have been practicing just certain sections and trying to perfect certain areas. They know, all right, this is where I feel the most comfortable and where I'm going to attack is, oh boy, for 10th place, contact's been made. It's going to be Alexander Light and Jamie Dunning who are going to be into one another. That's going to be the second contact for this lap. In the last lap was Wolsifer and Dakota Moniz who made issues. As we take another look at this incident, you're going to be seeing that of Alexander Light being caught by the 54. But Trevor, sometimes you just try to search for too much speed and it could cost you badly.
Yeah, I think Light just got on the gas a little too hard here. Maybe it looks like Dunning tried to get a better run off the outside corner, just got in the gas a little too hard. The car stepped out on him, and unfortunately for Alexander Light, just nowhere for the 97 to go as he gets it spun around and going back the right direction.
And luckily for that of Christopher Howell, he had an opening that just popped up, as that was he was really needing those red seats apart. He was going to make it through that carnage. Does. And now we're right back to hard racing on track, as Alexander Light and Dunning both have fallen about that of 4 to 5 positions from where they once were on track. Driver, though, that I was talking to during practice, the 38 of Christopher Norris, I got to say, Norris was feeling very confident coming into tonight. He felt like the consistency was there for the 38. Felt like as long as he raced the racetrack, kept his all 4 tires on course, he could have a pretty decent day. And right now, in 10th place, is that of Norris as he overshoots the backstretch chicane. It's the second one on the backstretch. He'll reset, gather it back up, and get rolling. But that's not the best way for yourself.
Yeah, just a little mistake there from Norris, but doing a pretty good job for himself. Really showing that he's evolved as a driver. I know he struggled with road courses earlier on, last season, but doing a really good job in that 38 machine so far here tonight. Just got to cut down on the mistakes a little bit, but doing a good job already up to 12th position from where he started, or up to 10th. I'm sorry, up 10 spots from where he started tonight.
Yeah, and I know for Christopher Norris, he's still riding off the high of that of Monday night, getting the win with the ISRC Truck Series. 38 is feeling great as battling now for 5th place position. Brandon Colley, Vincent Sora, they're now starting to see the 15. Sora up 10 positions, starting to close in. Was not able to get a validated lap for himself. And luckily here tonight, 15 has found a little bit of extra speed. He's been running about a second faster than Brandon Colley for the last 2 laps. It's crazy to think we're only 3 laps into this race and see the timer. We're less than 50 minutes, 10 minutes already thrown down and out of the way. But this hard battling, and there goes Colley off wide into the dirt. And Vincent Sora says, thank you, come again.
Yeah, Colley just trying to push, keep the 15 behind him, runs a little bit wide, gets into the dirt there, gives the spot to the 15, and right behind him now, Tom Stinchek in the 8th, the man who is quickest in practice, trying to follow the 15 as best as can. He's going to put pressure out of the one of Brandon Colley's to hit through the 4 curves.
Now going to be out of the portion corners, 4 curves coming up, and you're hoping at this point, when you're the faster driver, mainly means that you really have set up and perfected these corners on the entry and exit. When you come up to a driver that you feel like you're about a second faster, you have moments like that where sometimes they hit the brakes sooner than you expect, and here comes Tom Stinchek back into the throttle, and like a rocket ship is gone.
Yeah, just different braking zones by different drivers, especially guys that are more confident here on the road courses. You saw it there as Stinchek almost just ran over the back of Brandon Colley, but gets around him, and now he can try to chase down Vincent Sora, who's trying to chase down Ryan Bird in 4th place.
Colley just continues to have, after being passed by one driver, he's got another behind him, and issues arrive for a lot of themselves. And you know, something we haven't really talked about, Trevor, is penalties. These drivers, you know, when there's a lot of incident points, you can find yourself with a penalty. Luckily, incident point penalties and disqualifications have been removed like they were back at COTA. But one thing that these drivers do have penalty-wise they have to worry about are going to be corner-cutting penalties and slowdowns.
Yeah, corner cutting penalties and slowdowns, and they can really hurt you. I mean, they can be anywhere from, you know, one to 5 seconds, depending on how severely you cut the corner. Not quite sure where all the corner cutting penalties are here at Lemans, as it's not, you know, one of the tracks that we normally go to. So I couldn't point it out if somebody were to cut a corner and be like, oh, hey, that's a slowdown. But you'll definitely see it when somebody cuts one and then they have to kind of just pull out of the way, wait a couple seconds, and they'll get back on the throttle. But a mistake that you definitely don't want to make.
You definitely don't, as one driver is in pit road or was thinking about pit road and is now making their spot. That is going to be James Kaufman. Had to limp the 25 all the way around the track and finally has made it into pit road with required damage. Heavily damaged is that of Kaufman, as driver that's running in last place, got to see there for a quick moment, was that of James Hackworth Jr. But some other drivers that are having some decent runs, going to be watching throughout the field, is going to be that of Christopher Richard Wolsifer. Wolsifer is a driver I'm excited to see how he's going to run here tonight, as that made a couple of mistakes these last about 10 minutes. He went off track and was involved with another driver and lost a lot of time, but Wolsifer qualified 10th. Looks to have some decent speed if he can stay consistent, and that looks to be the issue for the 56 team.
Yeah, just the consistency for Wolfsford, not quite there, but I mean, he's still getting used to everything. You know, when he showed up as still a rookie, but when he showed up to the first race in Vegas, you know, really rough race for him, but he got better as we went on, had a really good qualifying effort, and Indy ran well there for a little while until he got caught up in a wreck. So he's improving. You just got to be, the consistency has to keep growing for the 56.
And there's going to be Mark Morales going off track. Instead of going through between the tires like you're supposed to, instead goes around it. So now he's going to have to give up a slowdown penalty and going to be passed by James Hackworth Jr., the 91. Runs in 22nd position. Didn't qualify. Decided to start in the back, and now it's continuing to feel that struggle as we move up to the battling for 16th. Got 3 drivers all on top of one another. It's Kyle Rochelle, that of Cogswell, as well as Kralik. getting prepared to enter that of the Indianapolis corner. Quick bend to that of the left to the right, and here we go. The 21 trying to keep himself out of trouble, but behind, Kralik makes the pass on the 27.
Yeah, the 27 there ran a little wide and dives, locks the brakes, slides
through. They both do. Oh boy, they both locked up in different sections. Kralik went wide because he felt like he had too much speed, while Cogswell dug it down deep, trying to outbrake the 0-1. And somehow they skate away without too much incidents there.
Didn't get into each other, so great job by both drivers there. Recognizing that they were locking up, each driver went their respective directions that they thought wasn't going to take out the other driver, and Aaron Kralik gets away with his. Rochelle goes off track now, and that allows the 01 to catch up to him here, and Aaron took a look to the inside of Rochelle as they head into the Ford curves.
Is showing right there, quick moment of how dangerous the Porsche curbs can be, and Kralik's starting to feel again. He locked up those tires, so the tires are a lot more warmed up. We talked about in the first lap, you want to heat up those tires so there's grip, but you can't overcook them to where it feels like you're in ice skates, and that's what we're seeing from two drivers dancing back and forth. And this is now into the Ford chicanes, where you have to be precise and hope that you don't run over the driver in front of you, as here comes the 21 and the 0-1. Last couple of chicanes before they take a rocket ship to the front stretch, and there they go, somehow surviving, and they go another lap. 43 minutes still left to race here tonight, though.
And those two battling like that allows Cogswell to catch back up to both of them after his big lockup. So just goes to show you, I mean, with how long this racetrack is and how long a lap is, Kralik locks up again and Rochelle runs wide, and that's going to bring the Cogswell right into this. Is almost contact between those two, and Aaron's going to get that spot as Rochelle falls back.
And if they continue to race like this, the 54, Jamie Lee Dunning's about to close in on this group. Side by side, Kyle Rochelle, Cogswell, they keep it close, and Cogswell going to take the pass for 17th place through the S's as they set up for corner number 8 and the launch to the front stretch. As here we go for these drivers, but there's others that have been doing decently well for themselves. Dakota Moniz is back in 15th place. He's kind of in a no man's land. He's got a driver behind him. That's Aaron Kralik. That's 9 seconds back. And then Gregory Schull, he's 3 seconds ahead of the 5. This is those awkward moments with being on an 8.5-mile course of, am I the only one on track? That's kind of the feeling the 5's feeling.
Yeah, just kind of in that no man's land area. Is he's got the shawl up in front of him there, and just somebody to chase after. I mean, at least you can see them. You don't feel like you're the only one out there. Looks like the 19 there of Dangler thought he was running a little wide there, but just trying to block the car behind him as they head down into the second chicane on the Mulsanne straight.
As we've been watching a lot of the battling that's been going on for that of 12th on back, there's been a lot of great action these drivers have been giving us. A quick update for those that are inside of the top 10. Vincent Sora has now made the pass both on Ryan Bird and Aaron Smith. He's up to 3rd place. Tom Sinchek is up to 6th. But right now, fastest car on track is Vincent Sora, that is closing in on our front leaders as we continue to watch these drivers. That's Vincent Sora in the 15. He's got Ryan Bird behind, and that of Aaron Smith is 3rd, 4th, and 5th, all on screen. Just about that at 7 seconds off of our leader.
I think Aaron made a mistake at some point in the last lap or two, because he was, right there behind Brian Johnson and Zachary Hall, now falling back behind Vincent Sora and Ryan Bird. But, Vincent Sora, he is a man on a mission, just showing you that he can win pretty much anywhere we go. It was a winner out at Coda and already up 13 spots from where, since he didn't get that lap in, already up 13 spots to 3rd position.
I mean, Vincent Sora finished 12th our last race, which has been his worst finish. He was on a streak of finishing in the top 3 for all the other races until that got broken at the track that is so wild and unpredictable of Daytona and Super Speedway racing. But Aaron Smith II comes into this race here tonight, 9th in points, and still searching for a decent finish for himself. He finished 3rd at Coda, and tonight was looking like another top 3 potential. But there's been a lot of drivers trying to practice, perfect this track. While the 70, he was trying his best to be practiced and ready, but there's so much more competition that has really came to birth because this 70 machine had a lot of, noise and hype coming into this season that of Aaron Smith II was the driver to potentially have to beat if you're going to go for a championship this season.
Yeah, it came in with a lot of high expectations for that 70 team, and you know, he's done fairly well in the races that he's been here. I know he's missed one or two, but just had some bad luck. Started on pole at Coda and it got spun out in the first corner, and just had some other just weird things happen to him. So he sits ninth in points, but wouldn't count him out any given week. Right now, just struggling. It looks like a little bit in that 70 machine.
He is, and a driver that's really struggling, that's Jonathan Cogswell. We got to see him battling back with Kyle Rochelle and Aaron Kralik for a quick moment, but he is done. A hard contact coming to one of our heartbreaking zones, the 27, excuse me, is out of the race. Too much damage to continue on.
Yeah, just unfortunate. Unfortunate incident there for Cogswell. I mean, was having a great battle with Rochelle and Aaron Kralik, and just unfortunate for him, but hopefully he comes back next week at Bristol and has a better performance there.
And right now for these drivers, they have officially come onto lap number 6, meaning that we are technically on the stage break lap. So when it comes to the end of this lap for our top 10, whoever's in the top 10 will get bonus points. And right now, the closest battling for the 10th place position is that of Christopher Howell, but right behind him pounding is the 97 of Alexander Light, who's been closing in very quickly these last 2 laps. Last lap was almost at 2 seconds faster than the 88, and he is now right on the tailpipes coming into the second chicane on the backstretch.
Yeah, and for Light, a really good recovery for himself after getting into the little bit of an incident there with Jamie Lee Dunning a couple laps ago. So good recovery from the 97 machine as he sets his sights here on Christopher Howell and the 88 as they head down the second part of the Mulsanne Straight.
Going to be now that of 2 tenths less closing in, but now the hard-braking zone here at the end of the stretch. And both drivers trying to figure out how they want to attempt on this braking zone. Most of the time you want to go wide and just be on that white line, get on the brakes so you've got the maximum potential to slow down. And a great turn by both those drivers. You see Christopher Norris closing in on our screen. He's going to be that of 9th on the board currently. But Alexander Light, he's gotten through the fast section. He's gotten the hard work to close in. And now is on the search to see if he can find himself passing Al for that one bonus point that can be so crucial to make it into the playoffs.
It closes in here, hard braking zone. Almost a little bit of contact there as he's all over the back end of the 88 of Christopher Howell. Here's a head into the Porsche curves. And at Light looking for that one bonus point. Like you said, Sam, I mean, that could be a huge difference for that 97 machine as we get closer to the playoffs.
See all the drivers going through the Porsche curbs for our leaders, but all eyes are going to be on who's going to survive out of the corners. Now here at a shot at our Ford curbs as our leaders are about to close in. As here we go, it's going to be that of Christopher Howell, Alexander Light. Hard braking zones going through, and they're trying to be good, but what are you seeing back there further in the field, Trevor?
Light, I was watching Light there, got a little bit onto the grass, thought he might lose that in the 97 machine, but held on to it as he still continues to pressure Howell here, now heading into the Ford curves for this last bonus point.
And there we go. We've seen the glowing from the brake rotors, but will they survive? Side-by-side contact, they continue to slam, and Light's race is over after body slamming with the 88. He'll try to get rolling, but there's a lot of damage to the front toe legs broken, and the battle for 10th, the one bonus point that they were coming to, and it all goes up in smoke for the 97.
And just no give there. I don't know if Howell realized that Light was going to dive. Looks like they both kind of went for the same bit of racetrack at the same time. And for Alexander Light, that is a broken toe link and a required 8 minutes of damage fixing for that 97 machine.
And luckily, he was right at pit entry, so he was able to continue to race on. But man, that is a hard lick for a driver that was looking extremely quick. I mean, Alexander Light was putting down times that were fast enough to place him inside of our top 7, and now we might have to finish out for that of a 21st position finish with how these drivers have been coming around this course.
Yeah, it's just heartbreaking there for Light, and you know, with it being a toe link, it is 8 minutes of required damage that he has to get fixed on that machine, and That's going to put him at least 2 laps down based off the lap times that Zach Hall's putting down so far. So just unfortunate there for the 97 machine.
As we are closing in to the halfway marker here tonight for these drivers, it was 60 minutes. How could you handle the 1 hour at Le Mans? And right now we've seen a couple of drivers make contact with one another. 3 drivers that have had to have required damage coming to pit road. One of Jonathan Cogswell has called it a night. James Kaufman, who had early issues, is back out on track, hoping to at least get 1 or potentially 2 positions if drivers are out of this race. But it looks to be another driver with required damage. It's Christopher. That's going to be that of Christopher Wolsifer who's out of this thing, it looks like.
Oh, Wolsifer. I mean, we were just talking about him not too long ago about how he was, kind of riding around doing good, had some good pace in that 56 machine. Unfortunate for Wolsifer, just not getting the results that, he shows that he has the speed in qualifying, but just not getting those results in the race.
And that was a recent contact that he actually had. A spot that we saw earlier with Kyle Rochelle going off track into the dunes through that of the Porsche curbs. Same spot the 57 had of going off course, hard into the wall, and luckily was in the latter half of the lap, so he was able to make it into pit road as soon as possible. As more drivers calling it having to be forced into pit road. And now kind of showing in a blink of an eye, you can have some major issues that can put you in some trouble. As we look at some of the drivers further on back, here's the 54, Jamie Dunning, who's in 17th place. Kind of giving us a nice cue that, yes, some of the drivers further on back can have issues, but just as likely that could happen is the drivers that are up front. Could they have a mistake that could be costly and ruin their race?
I mean, anything's possible right now, Sam. I mean, we've seen it with how quick the back half of this racetrack is and how just kind of off camber those corners is. As Dunning gets a little loose there on screen, but just kind of with how weird and quick these corners are, it's so easy to put a tire wrong or lock the brakes, and you're carrying so much speed and that you can just slide right off the track into the wall, and that's your night done. So I mean, we've seen it happen. I wouldn't be surprised if it keeps happening as the race continues.
As this race does continue on, we are actually going to step aside. We are coming to the latter half of this race. Who will survive to make it to the end? As these drivers are going to be ramping it up, the question looms, when do you come into pit road? Will it be now, or will it be in that 5 to a couple more minutes as Dunning gets into the wall? Will he make it to the end? Hard contact for the 54. Oh, he's going to need a breather. We will as well. We'll be back in just a few moments, but you won't miss a thing here on Freaky Fast Broadcasting. He's following. They're wrecking. They're splitting, and it's a complete mayhem.
We have a wreck at the front. 19 goes down into the 7. Takes out the double zero.
They're 5 wide behind for fifth. Oh my. 5 wide here. This ain't going to work, is it? They're already wrecking into turn 1, and now coming through that of turn 2. This is it, the Daytona. Oh no, they're wrecking contact. Sets gets into the wall. Gonna be scattering on the outside. Drivers on the apron. Drivers coming out of nowhere. Edison on the outside trying to get the win. And it's William Edison stealing it at the line.
Into the wall. The 18 trying to block. 77 get into the 18. That leaves 3 of TJ Roberts. 17 to Gavin Rogers. 3 of TJ Roberts is gonna steal the win here.
He went second fiddle so many times last season. Christopher Wade wins the season 5 Daytona 200.
whatsoever. I'm sideways. Sideways everywhere. Come on, man. Do what you can. The vibration in this car is the worst vibration that I've ever had, and the shifter's broken again.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Freaky Fast Broadcasting. My name's Sam Dyer. With me, Trevor Earhart, and the battling has been wicked, crazy, and now into pit road is going to be Carl Pooler and Dakota Moniz. And pit stops have been underway as we were under commercial break. And Trevor, we've also heard and been watching on our end a lot of drivers having issues with new tires. That was something that was seen at COTA of drivers not taking tires. Well, here tonight, it seems like taking tires might be the strategy to go.
Yeah, at COTA, drivers are talking about not taking those tires because how the tire model works in these next-gen cars. You don't want the cold tires, but Sam, we've been seeing everybody taking tires. I think that's just because of how long this track is, how many corners there are, but some drivers on those cold tires having issues. We saw Kyle Rochelle, when we were on commercial break, come in, take new tires, and spin out on those cold tires, so just something these guys have to watch out for as they get out there after their pit stops.
Also, I'm curious with the drivers that are taking in tires, it could be the fact on that how long this racetrack is, the amount of corners they're taking, and the fact that it builds up so much heat that the drivers just want a new set of tires, not because of the tire wear, but just to have colder tires to work with from here to the end of the race. As it is a 1 hour endurance race that these drivers get to tackle here at an 8.5 mile course of Le Mans. And right now, the WSSR Roast to Gems Cup Series has been giving us a treat as Mark Morales hits pit road for himself. But there's drivers we still are eyeing. When will they come into pit road? That's going to be all the drivers in our top 6. Our leaders, Zach Hall, Brian Johnson, Ryan Bird, Donna Brandon Colley, Rich Jameson, and Christopher Norris all still need to come into pit road, as well as a handful of others that are deeper in the pack, as we still have 25 minutes still to go. Trevor, there's still time to make some mistakes, and I think back to COTA, it was when pit stops came around that the 42 and the 28 had their biggest mistakes at that race.
I was just about to say the same thing, Sam. Those two drivers with pit road mistakes at COTA after dominating the first half until the pit cycle, and in the same situation here tonight. So hopefully for these two, don't get a speeding penalty as you get onto pit road or slide through your box, because his big lockup for the 42 of Zach. That's going to allow Brian Johnson to close back in a little bit, but those are the kind of mistakes you don't want to have. Is now the 28 inching ever so closer to the 42.
A little bit closer. Once was a second and a half gap. It almost was 2 seconds at one moment. Now they're starting to get ramped up and ready to get rolling. And I was looking at some of the other drivers have already come to pit road. The majority of them have taken tires. One, though, didn't, and it was our COTA winner, Vincent Sora, who's in 6th place, leading all the drivers that have already come into pit road right now. Here comes Zach Hall. Here comes Ryan Johnson. Don't get caught speeding for yourself. But it's Vincent Sora that is going on the crusade, making sure that he doesn't have to worry about tires. He takes none as he's going to try to stretch to the end. Here comes the 42 and the 28 machine. And for these drivers, their pace speed, 37 miles per hour. It's a crawl compared to the rest of this racetrack.
Yeah, right in behind them, the 49 Ryan Bird pits. But for these two, slowly inching their way down pit road. So it's going to be interesting to see where Vincent Sora comes out, because, it's about, 5 or 6 seconds quicker to not take tires in these cars than it is to. And Vincent was only about 8 or 9 seconds behind the leaders.
No tires can be taken from these front two. Ryan Bird, we'll see if he'll take tires or not. And that was always kind of the strategy of some of the front runners at COTA, was just take fuel, take enough that you need. And that's also another thing. Since they stretched their fuel out as far as they could minimize the amount of fuel that they needed to take. Zach Hall taking only 10 seconds of time in pit road, just the bare minimum of fuel to try to take it to the end, and that's going to save Zach Hall 6 seconds over Vincent Sora. But Sora has been flying through this course, but the gap now from the 42 to the 15, it is almost 9 seconds because of that better pit stop.
Yeah, really good pit strategy there from the 42 team. And really good pit exit there as he was able to actually put about 2 seconds on the 28 of Brian Johnson, and they came in nose to tail. So really good pit entry and exit for Zach Hall.
Absolutely incredible to see as more drivers coming into pit road. And what a wild time it is, as for a lot of these drivers coming into this race, had to think about fuel, had to think about how you were going to attack this track. Well, there is some great products out there that can give you information that you need to know to make some very critical attempts of pit road strategy calls, and that's from iRacing iFlag. iRacing iFlag, they've got themselves the iFlag virtual flag system, but I think one of the products that I truly do love and enjoy looking at has to be their digital pit board. It gives you great information, the weather, that of the track temperature, as well as your usage per 5 laps of fuel and how many laps of fuel you have remaining in your vehicle. It's just the small things, but these small little items to be purchased can give you great results while you're out there on track. Go to iRacingIFlag.com, go use our promo code FreakyFast2022 to go get yourself a discount at iRacing iFlag, as well as our stage sponsor going to be that of the admin box. Now, our stage was back at that of 35 minutes left in this race, but the admin box was our stage sponsor and a sponsor here at Freaky Fast Broadcasting. They're a premium button box that's a plug, set, and go, and ready for you to become the best admin race control out there for league races, for hosted races. It doesn't matter. The admin box is to help you become the best that you can be for the drivers around you. You'll use our promo code FFB-BOXX, that's FFB-box with 2 X's, to go get yourself a discount code at the admin box. And of course, since you've gotten your iRacing iFlag, you got your iFlag virtual flag system, as well as your pitboard box, and now you got your admin box, well, you need a racing rig to hook it all up to, and that's where Advanced Sim Racing goes. It's practically the eBay shop of sim racing. They've got great digital motorsports retail equipment to be purchased, as well as racing chassis to hook everything up. Go use our discount code FreakyFast5 for 5% off. Driver, through our ad read, through our commercial, green flag pit stops are done. We get to race it to the end for these final 20 minutes.
Final 20 minutes here to go, and you know, Zach Hall, you just got to keep putting down these lap times, minimize those brake lockups, and keep pulling away. As now he's about up to a 3-second gap to Brian Johnson and 6 seconds to Vincent Sora. So as long as that 42 machine can keep his nose clean, I think he can walk away with this.
As right now, in 9th place, we see here Christopher Norris, and Norris driving with a little bit of vengeance as we get to see our driver cam as he is using the sequential gearbox with his H-pattern steering. This 38 really having to work those gears, and what's crazy about this new next-gen Cup car, 5 gears, Trevor, compared to the old 4 gears, allowing these drivers to shift a lot more, but obviously that means you're working those arms a lot more than you used to.
A lot more arm workout, but the nice thing is, don't have to worry about a clutch because it's not an H pattern, it's sequential. So you just gotta kind of just rev match it and blip the throttle a little bit on the downshifts to get these cars to go into gear. But also got to remember, you got 5 of them, not just 4. You know, for a while there when these cars first came out, a lot of guys forgetting there's a 5th gear and staying 4th. So something you got to be aware of, but a lot more shifting involved at road courses now with that extra gear in these cars.
As Christopher Norris caught up in a wreck that of 10 minutes ago when we were in the middle of green flag pit stops, found himself not being able to go through that of the Indianapolis corner, and also saw there having to move his steering wheel and his steering box. That is a worst case scenario at a road course, is having to make sure that is stable while heading to these 4 chicanes.
Yeah, and that's something you necessarily want to have happen, but I mean, hey, it happens. Things come loose occasionally from the force feedback in your race hub there, and just got to make sure that it's centered, and you don't want to have any mistakes here, especially running inside the top 10 here with about 18 minutes to go. Just want to make sure everything's centered and you don't have any issues.
own any issues, and a driver that's been dealing with issues and slowly been falling back. Qualified third, now back to sixth. It's Aaron Smith II, who is just right now kind of in a little bit of no man's land. We talked about that with other drivers where there's a huge gap in front of you and behind you, but for Aaron Smith, his gap behind, almost 20 seconds between that of 6th and 7th place, which with a huge gap like that, it allows any mistakes the 70 has, as long as it's not a terminal required damage incident, the 70 should be all right. Even if he locks up the brakes, has a spin, he should still keep this position.
Yeah, a little bit of peace of mind when you got that big of a gap to the car behind you and to the, especially the car in front of you. Just gives you peace of mind that, hey, if I do make a mistake, it's not going to cost me a position. I don't have somebody, breathing down my neck here, but still don't want to make those mistakes. You want to be as clean as you possibly can and maybe run down the guys in front of you if they make mistakes. But just like you said, Sam, a little peace of mind there and in no man's land here for the 70 machine right now.
But yeah, to see Christopher Norris and his driving of being really no one around him, but a driver that is kind of trying to stay focused is Carl Pooler in the 71. I'm curious on Carl, though. 71 machine is a driver that's been trying to get a lot more adequate to be more consistent, be up inside the top 15, top 10, go for that type of a playoff push. And it's kind of been cool to watch Carl grow in these last couple of seasons and series that we cover here at Freaky Fast Broadcasting, because it just seems like the whole entire Limitless team, as you can see his driver came in the bottom right, is the fact that that whole team as a whole have been kind of growing season after season of trying to get better as a group. They've been finishing inside of the top 15 a lot more and showing their noses inside of the top 10 a lot more frequent.
Yeah, having raced with the race against the Limitless team in a couple of leagues and then watching them here on Saturday nights, they've grown a lot in the last couple of seasons, those guys, and it's good to see from them as a team growing together, getting more consistent, and Polar doing a really good job here. Only about a second and a half behind Dakota Moniz. Those guys came in nose to tail onto pit road. Lost a little bit of time to Dakota, but trying to run him back down. But having a really good run so far here tonight is Carl Polar in the 71.
At this point, if the race ended with it being 16 minutes to go, Carl Pooler would be having his best finish of the season. His other best finish was at Kansas, 16th place. So trying to get his first top 15 of the season as the 71. And as long as he keeps his nose clean, he's looking mighty good on where he's at. He qualified 12th, currently 12th. When you're at a road course, you'd prefer to either gain time or stay put, and that's exactly what he's been doing. But a driver that's been on the move, and one of our biggest movers was Vincent Sora, but we got to look back because here's some battling on track. It's for 16th. It's Kyle Rochelle. Jamie Dunning going to be side-by-side drag racing as they're heading into the hard braking zone.
Yeah, these two side-by-side drivers, both who have had incidents here tonight as they get here into the tight corner at the end of the straightaway, heading down into the run to Indianapolis as the 21 tries to hold off the 54 of Dunning, both of them trying to recover from spins that they've had early on.
Able to now head to the Indy rundown. Both these drivers are. Rochelle holds on to the position, but you can see with these next-gen cars, it's not a lot 2 weeks ago at Daytona. The drafting package so strong on the surges that you can get. But with the fact that there's hard braking, oh no, contact into the wall, watch out. There goes the 54, and he comes back out on track, almost door slamming again. That could have been a lot worse, but hard nose damage for the 54. And now he'll have to settle down and try to regroup and hope that there's not too much damage that he's got to deal with from here on out.
I'm sure Kyle Rochelle right now is very happy that Dunning didn't just T-bone him as he came back on track. Good job there by Dunning getting that car load up and turned away from the 21 as best he could there. But I mean, that happens when you're side by side with somebody trying to outbrake them. When you're right behind them, you get in that big draft in these cars like you touched on. That draft is so strong. When you get down to those braking zones, you're carrying 10 miles an hour quicker than you had been. You're not used to it. You miss that braking zone. We saw it right there with the 54 machine. Mistakes like that can happen.
Easily can. As here's the battle for that. It's going to be seeing lap traffic with some of our front runners. It's going to be Brandon Colley coming up to that of James Kaufman as they just got through the first chicane on the back stretch into the middle stretch as they set up for the second chicane. But the drag racing for these drivers, I mean, the majority of it, you'd like to say, is draft help. But man, it is all about that exit for these corners, and I think that's one thing that for road course racers that gets difficult is trying to find that good entry point and as well a good exit point to get back on the throttle, because sometimes it can get nerve-wracking for some of these drivers that just aren't used to road course racing. When these NASCAR stock car cup machines, most drivers love the oval side and dread road course racing.
Yeah, it's you either love road course racing or you hate it, and for a lot of the oval guys, they absolutely hate road course racing. So it's just about survival for them when they get here. But some of these guys, they're really good at getting into the corners, being aggressive, and then being able to get that huge run out of the corners, carry the speed, to the next set of corners. And guys like Zach Hall, Brian Johnson, Vincent Sora, I mean, they show it every time we go to a road course. They're really good at getting those corner exits and corner entries down.
So we're seeing our second base mover of the night. That's Tom Sinchek, fastest driver during practice. Could not find that speed during qualifying and put down a legitimate, valid lap because of too much of going off course. But this 8 machine, great recovery, looking for a top 5 run. And that's kind of, I think, what Tom Sinchek's mindset and kind of an audible he had to make was that changeup of, I'm going for the win. All right, let's just get a top 5 finish when you're not able to qualify as well as you wanted to.
Yeah, I'm sure he was a little disappointed that he didn't get that qualifying lap in, and especially after being the quickest car in practice. But done a really good job to drive up, 12 spots from where he qualified into the top 5. So probably for Tom, it feels like a win in his book. I know probably not the night he wanted, but it's got to feel like a win, especially here with how long this race is for that 8 machine to be up inside the top 5.
Well, let's move back to the battle for 16th because it's time for round number 5, 6, 7. It's been quite a couple of battles, as Kyle Rochelle and Jamie Lee Dunning are going to be right back at it, same spot before, as we get ready for the heartbreaking zone at the end of the stretch. And I mean, Trevor, for both these drivers, when you're racing around the same guys over and over again, you hope not to have contact and wrecks, but I won't be surprised if we get out of this situation with 11 minutes still to go in this race, if these two don't make contact again.
Yeah, it might happen. Dunning's been really aggressive under braking. Looks like Rochelle got a pretty good drive off the corner as they head to the run to Indianapolis here, but you don't want to see it, especially if you're racing around the same guys. You kind of understand now where they brake at, how they're driving. So the contact, if you make contact, I'm sure Rochelle wouldn't be too happy about it, but we'll have to wait and see as the battle continues. But it looks like Rochelle got a really good run here as they head down toward what they call the run to Indianapolis.
Into Indianapolis they go. It's a hard 3 corners that you try to go through, and in my opinion, some of the funnest corners to ride. And Kyle Rochelle throws out that rear end, and here comes Dunning closing in the gap. As they got one more corner, they're now going to be out of Indianapolis and heading towards that of the Porsche corners, where we've seen other drivers that have been battling and close on top of one another make simple mistakes. And Kyle Rochelle has to hope that he's looking through that windshield and not his mirror, because if he's looking at his mirror, he could make a mistake very quickly. Yeah,
down here in the Porsche curves, this is where we saw Christopher Howell and Alexander Light make contact. Here's the 54. Looking for any vulnerability in the 21, and there it is right there. Rochelle runs wide and lets the 54 of Dunning go right by him there, right before we get to the Porsche curves.
And in a blink of an eye, you go from looking like you're going to be very aggressive on top of one another to just let the 54 go. And I think for Kyle Rochelle, that's not the worst move in the world. The 54 has found trouble of getting into the wall and having his woes. And if he continues at this speed and pace, could make another mistake if not careful. As look at some of the other drivers on track. Biggest mover of the day, Vincent Sora. And for Vinny, he has been slowly closing in on our leaders and actually just put down the fastest lap of the day, a 3-minute and 55.7-second lap time. That last lap, this 15 is on a different level at this moment than everyone else. But the question now looms, did he use up those tires too much with 8 minutes and 50 seconds left in this race, and the gap just 5 seconds of difference?
5 seconds to Zach Hall. I mean, he's 2 seconds quicker than our leaders, about a second here behind the 28 of Brian Johnson. And Vincent's flying. I mean, didn't take tires on those pit stops, so, hopefully he didn't have too many lockups here tonight. But Sam, judging by his lap times, I think he's doing just fine.
Yeah, and remember, Vincent Sora took a full tank of fuel and took no tires Well, Zach Hall and Brian Johnson, they did not take a full tank of fuel. They took it just a little bit under to try to save time on the rest of their competitors, and I'm curious if that could also be a factor that could be changing up on how these drivers are testing against one another. But as I say that, though, I look at the track times for our front three. They've all been putting down their fastest laps of the day with not taking tires, kind of showing that the tire model almost identical to the way that it was back in COTA, where the drivers that didn't take tires, they are getting faster and faster, and those that did take tires before on their green flag pit stops, it is costing them right now.
Yeah, that tire heat, having those warmer tires gets a little sideways there out of the forward curves coming to the front straightaway, but still trying to run down Brian Johnson. But yeah, the tire model, not having those cold tires has been a detriment on these road courses. So I mean, it just goes to show you, after COTA and then especially here, if you go to a road course in these next-gen cars, don't take tires because they will hurt you, as the 15 runs a little wide there in the Dunlop chicane.
Little wide, little mistakes here or there. What's crazy is that last lap, Vincent Sora was still a second faster than Brian Johnson, and it's almost a second and a half faster than Zach Hall. So they're all starting to close in a little bit more, each lap on top of one another. But with 7 minutes left, and Zach Hall coming across the line, coming to that 7-minute and 45-second timer, it's looking like we are now inside of that 2 laps to go marker for Zach Hall. He's feeling good with a 3-second gap over Brian Johnson.
Yeah, Zach's just got to be consistent. Don't make a mistake here. You got 2 more laps, possibly, depending on how the iRacing decides to throw the white flag as we run down now 6 minutes to go. But you just got to be consistent. Don't make the mistakes. Don't look, at your relative to see how big the gap is. But for Vincent Sora, it's go time now. You got to get as much pace out of that 15 machine as you can. Only about 5 seconds back, from the 42 right now, and closing in on the 28 of Brian Johnson.
As you can see on our mini map on the bottom right, yes, it shows where the drivers are, and a lot of the drivers just kind of spaced out from one another. Not a lot of drivers right on top. It's really our front 3 that are keeping it close to one another, and like you see is mistake by Brian Johnson locking up those tires, and here comes that of Vincent Sora closing in a little bit more as he's wheeling those rear tires. He doesn't care. It is all about using up all that you've got. You got 5 minutes. That's a lap and a half that you got to worry about. Use all the grip you've got. You got nothing left to worry about.
Yeah, nothing to worry about here. Just go as hard as you can. Try to gain as much time as you can. And he's doing just a big lockup there from the 15. Keeps it on track, though, as he tries to keep running down the 28 of Brian Johnson.
And what's so interesting to watch, as I've watched practices, private practices with Category 5, that's what these top 3 drivers are. They're all technically teammates outside of this league. They split up to kind of give a little bit more rivalry when they started the WSSR this season and last season. But I've watched the different driving styles. For Brian Johnson, he's all about neat, tidy, keep this car as smooth as you can be each and every time. Zach Hall and Vincent Sora, you're just about putting that car on the edge at all times, and you maximize all the grip that you've got. It doesn't matter if the rear end's kicking out. If you've got speed and you feel like that is the fastest way around, they're going to do everything they can to wheel these cars around.
Yeah, you can see the difference in driving styles. As Johnson, hasn't had that many lockups. We've seen Zach Hall with lockups, Vincent Sora with lockups. Both of those 2 drivers drifting the cars through every corner imaginable these last couple of laps. But Brian's slowly but surely, just closing the gap. Was about 2.5 seconds to Zach Hall, halfway through this lap, but now down to about 1.5 seconds to the 42 machine. That just goes to show you how much time you can really gain and lose in one lap here.
And that last lap, Brian Johnson's been being a lot more consistent and has been finding a lot more extra speed as we're heading into that of the forward chicanes, the last portion of this track. Last 4 corners these drivers have to worry about as they go on through. Start of this lap, it is going to be less than of what a lap should count to be. So now we wait on iRacing. Will they allow these drivers to finish out this lap and do another one, or will this count as the white flag? We'll have to wait and see when they come back around, because right now it's still showing that they are going to have to do 1 more lap after this.
Yeah, I'm sure Zach didn't want to have to do another full lap. Wanted this to be the white flag lap as that gap still continues to shrink, not only to the 28 of Brian Johnson, but also to the 15 of Vincent Stora. And for the 42, I mean, Sam, I don't know if he might hang on to this because Johnson's coming.
And now also they're closing in on lap traffic in front of him. That lap car going to be Wolsifer, who's had such a poor time for the 56. He looked so good during practice on the consistency wise. He looked great during qualified 10. The 56 now is going to be a limping vehicle on the straightaways and going to be caught by our leaders. The question is, how does Wolsifer want to get out of the way? Because if our leaders catch him in a bad spot and he is on the racing line at the chicanes, this could be drastically changing how Zach Hall runs this race. As Wolsifer stays on the racing line, they're closing in on the 56. The question is, for that second chicane, will the 56 get out of the way?
Yeah, you hope, and he does. Pulls over, lets Hall go. Is going to let everybody go. So not going to cost Zach Hall any time, but the gap still can down to 1 second now. So Brian Johnson's cut it from about a second and a half down to about 1 second here just in these first couple of corners.
Closing it in, and this is where it just seems like whenever you go into hard braking and turning zones, this is where Brian Johnson's been closing in the gap. Talked about the different styles. Zach Hall willing to let that rear end flare out, while Brian Johnson's all about being neat and tidy when they come out of the exit of the corners. Once again, Brian Johnson just slightly closing in, but back up to speed is Zach Hall. He's slowly stretching out this lead, but in the overall scheme of things, Johnson is closing in the gap, and Vincent Sora is also closing it in. Hall locks it up. That's going to cost even more time. Trevor, this is going to be a wild last lap, as we believe that when they come across the line, that will be the white flag.
Oh, this is going to get exciting here as Johnson's closing in on the 42, and if these two get to battling too hard, Vincent Sora is right there behind him. So, I mean, we could have a three-way fight at the end of this race, and it's 8.5 miles, Zach, 33 corners for a one-lap shootout, essentially. So any little mistake could send you from first to third or third to first, depending on, where you're running right now.
And all the drivers have the clock in their black box, which is a little box on their screen that lets them know how much time's left in this race. They know they're in the final minute of official racing. But one more lap to worry about is Morales is going to be high. He's going to be just blocking a little bit. That's going to be costing momentum for that Zach Hall and Brian Johnson. And now for Vincent Sora, he's got to get on his wheelhouse and start getting rolling, because for Brian Johnson, if he gets by this 42 easily, the Brian Johnson could steal this race away.
Yeah, Vincent lost a little bit of time, was only about a second and a half back, now down to about 2.5 seconds back for the 15 machine. But Johnson is there as they were able to navigate the 91 of Martin Morales. But Brian closing the gap to the 42 as they head through the Porsche curves to the Ford curves to come to the white flag lap. The 28 is there.
As we are in our final 10 seconds, it was a 1 hour, 60 minutes. De La Mane is going to be for tonight's race for the WSSR Roasted Gems Coffee Cup Series. Here we go. It's Zach Hall, Brian Johnson, going to be a half a second off from one another. Vincent Sora going to be 2.5 seconds back. We are getting prepared. White flag about to be thrown out for these drivers. Is this it, or are they going to go for another lap? Down low, it's going to count. That is going to be the win for Vincent, for that of Zach Hall. And we wait, we see they're still running, and they're slowing down. That's it. Zach Hall wins. These timed races, Trevor, you never know how it's going to finish out.
Yeah, never know how you're going to finish out. Never got the notification that was the white flag, but Zach Hall, great job there. Got a little closer than I think that he wanted it there at the end, but good job from bringing that home.
It's going to be that of Zach Hall getting the win there by 0.3 over Brian Johnson. Vincent Sora 2 seconds back. And for Vinny, I think a lot of frustrations are going to be about that qualifying. If he had qualified, he would have been a threat to go winning for both of the road courses this season.
Yeah, but also for Vincent Sora, you got to think, been in the top 3 every race apart from Daytona. Got caught up in a wreck late at Daytona, so getting right back, showing that he didn't lose any momentum after Daytona. So I'm sure he's happy about that 3rd place finish. But Zach Hall hanging on to win, sure happy. I bet he is happy that we didn't have one more lap there.
It was looking a little bit dangerous there at the end, but it's going to be Zach Hall getting the win. Brian Johnson's going to get second, third, Vincent Sora. And for us up at the booth, we're going to let Zach Hall have his fun around here at Lemans as we're going to step away. When we come back, it's the post-race show for how the WSSR survived heading to France. And Zach Hall winning the race that he was kind of calling that he felt like he could win, and he got it done. Congratulations to the 42. For everyone watching, don't step away. We'll be right back for the post-race show. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the post-race show here on Freaky Fast Broadcasting for the WSSR Roasted Gems Coffee Series. These drivers put on a show, and we're going to talk to third place finisher first. That's Vincent Sora. Biggest mover of the day as well was Vinny, up 13 positions from where he started. But Vinny, third place, congratulations on that. But man, we got to go back to qualifying. What happened there for you not to be getting any of those times validated?
Yeah, I just went wide in one corner on one lap, and well, both laps actually. In the first lap, it gave me a slowdown, and that invalidates the lap time. And then on the second lap, I got an off track, and that invalidates it, which is really frustrating because I feel like I clearly had winning pace, and to make it up as many spots as I did and still be that close to the leaders is really frustrating, especially with all the little minor mistakes that I made tonight. But yeah, lost it on qualifying. If I think if I would have qualified even in the top five, I easily could have had a shot at the win, but I didn't. But I'll still take B3 from where I started.
Yeah, Vincent, I mean, you showed the pace pretty much all night tonight from the drop of the green flag that it was there for you. But I mean, it's got to feel good. 2 weeks ago at Daytona, didn't get the finish that you wanted. Obviously, had the speed there, been in the top three pretty much all season. But it's got to feel good to get back, into the top three here tonight, especially after not having those laps validated for you in qualifying.
Yeah, for sure. P3 is good, and to get the stage points that I did, I think I was P3 for the stage as well. So yeah, we'll definitely take that after Daytona. It sucked what happened to Daytona because I feel like I probably could have won that one with the run that we had coming out of four, at least finish inside the top five. But it is what it is, and we're just going to take the points that we got tonight and move on next week.
Which next week, in really this upcoming stint, we got a lot of short track races coming up, Vinny, with the final four races before the playoffs. How are you feeling mentally wise, setting up for those races, being the points leader?
I feel pretty good. I really like the points gap that I got, and going into the playoffs, just about getting those extra points to make both those rounds easier to make it into the final four, which I've gotten a lot of playoff points. I think I have the most bonus points. I have the points lead, so now I just got to keep on racking them up, and I should have a pretty easy way into the second round of the playoffs, but making it into the final four is definitely gonna be pretty tough. So I need all the points I can get.
Well, congratulations on a third place finish here tonight. And before we let you go, the floor is yours for any shout outs.
Yeah, I just want to first off give a big shout out to Zach. He's been really trying to get that first win over here, and I'm really happy for him. I know that he really earned this one tonight, and I'm sure there's gonna be many more to come for him. So he's helped me out a lot. So big shout out to him. I want to give a big shout out to my sponsor, McConey Setup Shop, my painter, Tom Sinchek. I want to give a shout out to all my Category 5 esports teammates, everybody in the league, you guys for broadcasting, and yeah, I think that's it.
Congratulations, Vinny. That's going to be Vincent Sora in the number 15 coming away with third place finish here tonight. Congratulations on that. And good luck heading up to short track racing at Bristol next week.
All right, thank you guys. Have a good one.
As from third place, we go to that a second with Brian Johnson, who tried to make the close in there, but just wasn't close enough at the end. Brian and Sam and Trevor up in the booth. Congratulations on second. But man, what was going through your mind in those final 10 to 15 minutes?
Well, you know, uh, not much, cause I was trying to keep it consistent and push a little bit, and the whole race I was able to just barely keep up with Zach, and really the only time I would gain time on him is if he made a mistake. So, um, I just had to make sure that I had to be perfect. But then the last couple laps, he started making a few mistakes, and I was like, I don't really want to push because when you start pushing real hard in this car at a road course, especially Lemans, bad things happen when you do that. So I was trying to minimize risk, and I didn't really push too hard up until about the last lap. And yeah, if I would have known that I could gain that much time on him by really pushing and almost wrecking the car every single corner, then I probably would have done that a little bit sooner. But um, you know, it, especially the last kind of the last half of that last lap, I was like, okay, I just push a little bit more. If I can get side by side with him into those last two chicanes, like that's not typically where you make a pass, but it's the last lap, so we're gonna try it if I get there. But I just couldn't quite get there. So, kudos to Zach. He, definitely ran a pretty much a perfect race, and had a lot of pace. And, I know he's wanted to win in this league for a very long time, and now he's got it.
And Brian, great run for you to come home second. And we saw Dakota not taking tires on the road course. We kind of know the tire model is set up that way. But I mean, was there ever a thought? We saw some guys take tires here, but I mean, was that ever a thought? With especially how long this track is?
No, not at all. Because yeah, the Lemans is, mainly straightaways for one, so that that helps a lot with the tire wear. And then yeah, for whatever reason, it's not just iRacing where these tires don't wear on road courses. You see that in real life NASCAR as well when when they went to Watkins Glen a few weeks ago. I mean, guys were going out there 40, 50, 55 laps on a set of tires. So for whatever reason, I guess this car, the suspension, it really is efficient with where it gets its grip from, so it doesn't wear out the tires. So, yeah, going into this race, I mean, we were on the grid and the pace car started pulling off, and I unchecked my tires immediately because I didn't want to make the mistake of taking tires. So, and then, once I took that pit stop, got back out on the track, I looked at the tire wear and it was like 95 in the front and 93, 94 in the rear. So these things don't wear. It's like I was telling my teammates before the race, like maybe at the end of the second run, taking tires would be advantageous for you. But uh, the first lap of that second run where you have the new tires, they're cold and you lose a lot of time on cold tires with the way things are now. So um, yeah, it was definitely a no tire taking kind of race.
Well, Brian, it was an incredible run for us there at the end. We thought for sure there was a chance for you to be there if you just had one more lap, but you didn't. It came down to time, and congratulations on second place. And before we let you go, the floor is yours for any shoutouts.
Well, I just got to thank my number one fan. Appreciate it being out there. Got to thank my teammates. Vincent tonight. I didn't really expect him to be that close to me with where he qualified, but he made it up there. And I was trying to catch Zach, but I also had to make sure that I was perfect myself, so I didn't give him a chance. So, give him a shout out and to Aaron, and we had Dakota Moniz with us tonight as well. So, got to thank them for hanging out with us. And I hadn't looked at the results of where they finished, but there wasn't any too um, too bad, too much bad talk in there. So I guess everything went okay. And got to thank all the admins in this league and all the drivers that show up. We've done pretty well this season with road course races with the numbers of guys that we've gotten in the field. So that's great to see. And then of course you guys are putting on a great show as always, and everybody else that tuned in. Just gotta thank everybody that wants to be a part of this. It's a cool thing.
That's going to be second place finisher here tonight, Brian Johnson. Congratulations on that, and good luck heading to Bristol next week.
All right, thank you, sir.
Well, from third and second, with some of the most waynish drivers of all time in this series, we now get to talk to a driver that gets his second win of the season. His first one was all the way back in July 4th of 2020, but tonight, for that is September 3rd, 2022, Zach Hall for the WSSR Cup Series is back to victory lane. Zach, congratulations on your win. The 42 is in victory lane. How are you feeling after that one?
Oh man, I'm lost for words a little bit just like I didn't believe that just happened, and man, yeah, that's been a long time since I got a win, and personally, I'm gonna feel like this is my first real one here at the World Series of Sim Racing. Man, I mean, I won that race at Daytona a long time ago, and personally, anybody can go win a race there, and to beat these guys on a track like this at Le Mans, one of my favorite tracks in the whole entire world. I, it was a great night. I really was proud of my consistency until those last couple laps where I had to make it interesting for everybody and kind of do my normal breakdown. But I kept it together, and luckily, man, got across the line first. I'm really glad that was the last lap, because if it wasn't and we had one more, it would have got pretty interesting. Let's just say that.
As Zach, I mean, you showed the pace at Coda, had that pit stop mistake, but you come here tonight, you dominated from the drop of the green. But I mean, walk us through those last, essentially 5 minutes there, as you saw Brian Johnson closing in on your mirror. I mean, how nervous were you getting there?
I was pretty nervous actually. Coming down to the end, I made some mistakes before the pit sequence. Right there, saving fuel. Actually, I was very surprised. Didn't think I'd have any problems making it 9 laps all week. I was able to go about 9.5 or so, and I was very close to fuel. Like I almost ran out getting the pit road. So the last 2 laps where I had to save, almost made a big mistake there earlier in the race. That let Brian really close up right before the pit stop where I'd opened up the gap. So I lost time there. Luckily, I took less fuel than him, so that worked out, gained the time back, and then kind of just rode and tried to keep my consistency. But man, those demons creep in when you get to the end of these races and you so many times you've made those mistakes to give it up. They start to creep back in your head, and luckily I had to fight them back off. I made 2 pretty big mistakes. That last lap was just maybe a little too conservative more than anything. I didn't really make any mistakes other than locking up really once, but it was just a little bit conservative just to make sure, maybe a little too conservative because I didn't like how close he was coming out of the Porsche curves there. That was the big thing, was just not to get a slowdown out of there, really. That was my number one thought in the brain coming out of the Porsche curves, was no slowdowns here and just make him have to get around me the old-fashioned way. And luckily, he didn't get there. I was able to keep it together. I knew the last 2 chicanes were part of my good part of the track. And, man, max points night here, getting the max bonus points for winning the stage and getting the win. Cannot complain, guys.
I mean, Zach, for us at the booth, we couldn't tell that it was going to that white flag. Were you notified in the vehicle when it was the white flag, or were you guys not sure coming to the line as well?
Yeah, the white flag came out right as I entered the second to last chicane there, right before pit road. I was actually surprised by it because it was right at the 4-minute mark, so I knew it was either going to be the white flag or not. I had planned for having the fuel to do it, so I had the fuel to make it. I'd planned 4:16, but luckily it was 15. So yeah, we got it there, and pretty much from there just went through the whirlwind of emotions, finally getting a win here, man, and get locked into the playoffs.
Congratulations, Zach, on the win, and have a fun one celebrating this. And before we let you go, the floor is yours for anyone you need to shout out.
First off, shout out my sponsor, Freaky Fast Broadcasting here, the best broadcast in iRacing. So if you're out there and you're looking for a broadcast, I know we're filled up most nights of the week, but you never know, those spots will open up. So check out Freaky Fast Broadcasting, guys. First of all, Sam, Trevor, Robert, you guys do a fantastic job, and I cannot wait to go back and watch the last lap of that race, because I know from my heartbeat racing there, it had to be a little bit interesting from y'all not knowing, especially it's not the white flag lap. So that'll be interesting to go back and see that. And then last but not least, shout out all the sponsors here at our league, man. Dude, just an awesome night here. The race was sponsored by Tyler Dingler. Thank him for sponsoring the race tonight. And then also thank you to Roasted Gems Coffee. They're amazing. Everything they do for sim racing is just really A-class. So cannot complain about them. And then to all the drivers out there. So that's pretty much it, guys. Man, let's go celebrate now.
It was a crazy one, but congratulations, Zach. After 2 years, you're back in victory lane. Have a good one with this, and good luck heading to the madness that's going to be Bristol next week.
Thanks, guys.
As we go from victory lane to go check out what the results of tonight's race looks like. I mean, a wild one overall, Trevor. And like most timed races, we never know up in the booth if it's done or not.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure if that was over, but thankfully for Zach, that was the last lap, as Brian Johnson was right there as he came across the line. So congratulations to Zach getting the win here tonight in the 42 machine, and great finish there again tonight. I mean, that got really interesting there, that last lap, and what a battle that was.
It was an incredible battle for us to be able to witness. Zach Hall surviving the relentless charge of Brian Johnson, and Vincent Sora, biggest mover of the night, comes away third, with Ryan Bird in fourth. Fifth's going to be Tom Sinchek. Aaron Smith, the second, going to be sixth, with Brandon Colley seventh. Ninth goes to that of Christopher Norris. Even with his mistakes, still comes away with eighth. Rich Jameson in ninth, and then it's going to be that of Christopher Howell, after being body slamming with that of the 97 of Alexander Light, I think a new rivalry could have been birthed after tonight's race.
Yeah, a little bit of a rivalry brewing there as Light finishes all the way down in P20, 13 spots down from where he started. And I mean, he showed speed tonight, but that contact there with Christopher Howell really kind of ended his night. And down there with him, Richard Wolsifer, qualified inside our top 10, was showing some pace, and just a lockup sent him into the wall and cost him a decent finish as well. But overall, Sam, great run from pretty much everybody. Christopher Norris up there, 12 spots, right along with Tom Sinchek and Vincent Soares, our biggest movers of the race. So, some guys having good nights and other guys just having a bit of bad luck out there.
And it was incredible for us to watch, but the tracks don't get any easier from here on out. We go to Bristol, Southern National Sports Park, Michigan, and then finishing out the regular season going to be at Phoenix before we get to ourselves a 5-race playoff system where it's going to be 2 rounds, 2 races each before we get to our championship race, which will be at Chicagoland. But it is going to be really a mental fortitude rest of the season. Even with tonight's struggle, can you stay focused enough to tackle the short tracks that are coming up to be really the final march to the playoffs? As tonight, Zach Hall gets the win. And Trevor, I'm excited to see how the rest of the season is going to go. But man, with short tracks finishing out the regular season, I don't know if anyone's really going to be feeling too nice or giving for the rest of this go.
Yeah, back-to-back short tracks. Bristol, Southern National. Tempers are going to be flaring. Drivers are going to be angry at each other. It's going to get interesting, especially, 4 races till the playoffs, 2 of those being short tracks. If you got some bad blood between you and another driver, you never know what you're going to see in those 2 races, so you don't want to miss those at all.
Don't want to miss a thing, as if you want to watch the rest of the season, you got to subscribe and follow. Make sure you are keeping up to date here at Freaky Fast Broadcasting, as well as many of our other amazing broadcasts and leagues we get to cover. We've got Sunday night. This Sunday, we're going to be off for the 802 Next Gen Cup Series. They'll be back next Sunday. But then on that Monday, we got the ISRC Truck Series. We got the Full Send Series on Tuesday. Wicked Racing Wednesday. Stars and Stripes on Thursday. We got Friday off every single week. And then we're right back here for WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series action. Race number 8. It is Bristol. Can't wait to see you there. But for us up at the booth, thank you for joining us for the 1 hour at the Lemans, as it was Zach Hall getting himself into victory lane after the 60 minutes that were shown. For myself, Sam Dyer, for Trevor Earhart and Robert Moyer, and everyone else that helps out here at Freaky Fast Broadcasting, we'll see you on the next one tonight. Have a good one. Have fun with watching football. Football season's here. We're excited for it. And I hope that you have a safe rest of your night. We'll see you on the next broadcast.